happy to see some familiar faces outside of Alice here and some new ones as well, a lot of new ones. Today I will be talking about how to become a context engineering professional in your own domain, which means that even if you are not a technical person, you will have to do a lot of context engineering in the future in your own work. But even if you are like an engineer, you will have to do a lot of other non-technical work which requires heavy context engineering sometimes. The thing I will talk about today is trying to frame what this is, trying to show some questions that I think about when approaching these sort of problems, showing my setup, how I work, 4 examples for it, some risks, and some tokenomics that would come up in the future, and also a few notes about using local AI models. What I would also like to mention here is that nowadays the most important gap is not the tool itself, is not the AI, but rather the environment we have around it, meaning what sort of context can we put into it, what sort of connectors can we put into it so that the AI can work efficiently with these data. And we have this very strong sort of direction from that we see in client companies as well, but within Alice as well, to use AI more and to try to adopt AI as much as we can. But sometimes the direction is not really clear regarding tools, shared context, and how to actually set these systems up. And when I try to think about these sort of issues, I usually like to phrase it as such, which also happens to be in Anthropic's documentation. Find a smaller set of high signal tokens that can maximize the likelihood of your desired income. This is how I try to pretty much approach these sort of problems. Right now, today, you can be a little bit more creative and you can be a little less careful about this principle. But in a few months, years, when all of these companies will turn to token-based pricing or will increase their subscription prices, I think this will be very important to take into account. Regarding what is the difference between prompt engineering and context engineering, I'm not trying to be like a know-it-all guy, but in my phrasing, I would say that prompt engineering can give you like a proper result for you, while context engineering also designs the information around how you work. That's how I like to phrase this. And regarding the framework I try to work in, there are a few questions which are important to note and which I also take into account when designing my workflows. What does the AI need to know? What sort of information does it have access to? What can it touch? Meaning where has reads rights, where has write rights, and what sort of tools can it connect to? What should it do, like the whole design of a specific workflow, which I'll show in a few examples in the future. And how should it do it, meaning human in the loop pauses and stuff like that. And regarding what I try to brief the AI about when I work with it is a short role brief, which helps me a lot to know who I am and what sort of level to use it with me, what sort of technical level. But nowadays, what I've experienced, honestly, is just, especially when I'm trying to like multiplex around with multiple AI instances at the same time, I like to communicate with each one of them in a very concise way. So usually I expect them to only say like a few sentences about the output, because if I work on like 3 or 4 agents at the same time, it's very hard to read a bunch of text, and I like to keep them concise. So this is some information, some personal preference about me. The other thing which I also feed into it every time is references from my notes. I'm going to show you a skill that I made for this so that it can brush up all these knowledge when I start a new session, instead of actually having to dictate or write everything down in a new session. The third thing is hard rules, what must never do, names, languages, things like that. And the fourth pillar is examples. So let's say I make an offering or I do some pre-sales task. It has to know some examples about how do I like to structure these. Now, regarding what can it touch? So, of course, I've integrated a lot of MCPs into this setup. And the way I like to approach this is to set up a very specific knowledge base for it. And the most important part here is actually curating this knowledge base about my work. And in my case, I have to work with a lot of projects simultaneously, a lot of different clients, a lot of different specifications, a lot of different needs. And in order to be able to work like this, I have to make sure that there are no hallucinations in the database that I get this information from. And in order to do that, what I do is I structure all my notes and all my written data in Notion in a way which avoids these sort of false informations. To this, I usually just do manual reviews before I push a note into my knowledge base. That's the best way I have right now. And regarding the other connectors, I usually like to give write access to all of these like Drive, Gmail, Calendar, and all of these administrative tools because it makes my life a lot easier. Important note that sometimes I use other MCPs because the native connectors have a lot of limitations, especially when it comes to modifying documents in Google Workspace, Google Sheets, stuff like that. Regarding what should it do, I try to organize all of these workflows into skills or agentic flows because that helps me to run these repetitive tasks autonomously. So as you see here in the examples, I like to organize into like these pre-sales synthesize, estimation creation, and reviews or brush up skills. This helped me a lot to, instead of having to go through the same task manually, I can refer to my knowledge base and the workflows I defined at ease. And how should it do it is, well, the most important part here that I would like to highlight is probably the verification of every AI output, because a lot of times it can still, of course, put a lot of hallucinations inside your financial estimations or client solution proposal documents. And in these cases, you always have to review these. And when I see some non-conforming results, I just usually update these skills and these workflows so that next time it's going to be correct. What this looks like is that I try to organize everything into agent agnostic or provider agnostic way. So I don't know if you're familiar with symlinking, but with the symlink command, you can symlink your Cloud MD to Agent MD so that even if you open the same project from Copilot, Cursor, Cloud Code, any of these services, is going to recognize your Agent MD. And then I have referenced these to my projects and databases in Notion and the Firefly's transcripts. With the tools, it can attach to all of these knowledge elements. And of course, with the workflows, it helps me to execute these skills. Just to show you in an example, so the first layer is the information layer that comes from Google Drive, Notion, or the Markdown files from the repository. What I would like to highlight here is that none of this is actually coding. So none of this is writing a single line of code. Most of it is doing pre-sales and solution architecture. I rarely write code with this system. It's mostly set up to actually help me do the pre-sales work and use case exploration. And regarding the workflows, I would like to show a few soon about this. And the first one would be the project estimation skill, which uses the brush. So imagine it as if the brush up skill would pull all the context for a project. And for me, the reason why this is so important is because if I had to manually paste in every single page or every single document that I used for that specific project, that would take a lot of time, even if I had to dictate it. So I just created a skill so it brushes up everything, every single context element from my database. It's created, and then I can go on, and once it has that context, I can create an estimation sheet for it. Honestly, creating a document like this with properly estimating risks, project management, percentages, and every single element like this takes a lot of time. And this brings it down to just a few minutes, and the results are pretty good. It's something that we actually use, and it came out correct multiple times. How it looks like, with a bit more details. What I didn't show you previously is that here we have a human review part. So of course I review every single line item on this one, and then I try to organize this whole offering into a Google Sheet document. The second thing that I work together with Lucas here from Alice is the architecture diagram skill. Now it has a new name, but it basically draws draw.io diagrams, which is extremely useful because even though they are really useful, it takes a lot of time to draw these diagrams manually. And for us, it helped a lot to actually build these. What this takes into account is, of course, the description architecture for the project and the estimation sometime as well. And a lot of rules that we got from Google's official documentation, and of course a few rules that we wrote into the system ourselves. With Lucas, we were prototyping and working a lot on actually figuring out how to create a diagram without the AI crossing over all the arrows on top of each other, because that's very annoying. Then you're not really able to see how the flow is actually what the flow actually looks like, and this was the most important challenge here. And at the end of this flow, I usually get a draw.io diagram and a PNG, which I can paste into the offering. So again, another little non-coding workflow that saves a lot of time. Yeah, another thing that I try to bring to Ali's and trying to do my pre-sales work like this is working prototype for demos. And I think what AI made possible mostly for us is to show value to clients a lot sooner. And the best way to achieve that is, in my opinion, with building demos. So just as we learn a use case, we can show demos for them. In the recent months, I joined just about 3 months ago to Ali's. In the recent months, these sort of demos and this sort of approach helped us to win back one client into discussion and helped us to run over one client, and the collaboration has started this week with them. Yeah, basically what happens here is this takes a bit of coding. I wasn't lying before, but this one takes a bit of coding. So here you have to give some constraints to the model, you decompose the use cases, and then you set up this little demo project in a GCP sandbox project so that you can show it to the client, or maybe even you can run it locally. And another thing which has, I think, had a huge factor in the past few months in the company is creating presentations. We have to create a lot of presentations, especially in pre-sales. And I don't know who likes to use PowerPoint, but I'm very happy that AI made it possible for me to not open these sort of applications. And this presentation was created with AI as well. This one is an HTML. It just supports a paginated, HTML supports pagination, and so it created a presentation mode for it. It completely follows our brand guidelines. And how it works basically is that you call the skill. It helps you to plan the presentation, shows you a draft of each of the slides, and then creates an HTML file output for it. You can also transform it into a PPTX, but usually it's going to be an HTML because AI models were trained to work really well on these code bases, and it can write HTML really well, while with PPTX, that's a bit harder, and it's very token heavy because there you have to extract the PPTX contents in an XML format, and then you have to repack it. So it's very context heavy, and it's very important, in my opinion, to keep these flows shorter and faster. What can go wrong is usually, in my case that I've experienced, and I would like to highlight two things here, is of course hallucinations, which still happen. So if the model doesn't know something and it has knowledge gaps, it tries to fill that in with some random context that it just improvised. And the other one is context poisoning. And this is what I tried to highlight in the very first use case and building this knowledge base, is that it's very important to, when I work with this knowledge base, to actually review every content that gets uploaded there, because otherwise it could happen that in a client project or in something that's actually really important, some context and some sentences go into which should never be there, and this could like completely drive off the entire discussion. And even if you can fix it mid-discussion, still it's going to steal a lot of context from that chat stream into something that is not actually useful. And the other thing I want to talk about is the economics. So I think the times that we live at right now are not going to last forever. I think I'm not sure what's the actual pricing for it, but at all I think I have the 5x plan, which costs right now about 100 euros a month. And I was able to use in the last 30 days about 1 billion tokens. I just measured it today before creating the presentation. So I was able to use 1 billion tokens, and this would come down to about 1,000 USD in cost. And what this means is that for these companies, these sort of subscriptions are not profitable, and they will have to act on it sooner or later, because otherwise they would just be burning money, which of course cannot happen for forever. And I would like to refer back to the first sentence that I was trying to highlight, the one that what is the minimum amount of tokens that can maximize the desired outcome when talking to an AI. And here I would like to show a few ideas or use cases and approaches that could help with this whole situation, because all of these models are going to be extremely expensive in the future, especially the smarter ones that you use right now for complicated coding or architectural tasks. Yeah, of course, I like to check these just for fun. Right now, Anthropic, Cloud Code, for example, with the 200 max 20x subscription, it provides about 8,000 worth of tokens, so about 40 times as much as the subscription should cover. And what I'm trying to do right now is monitor my usage. And another thing is I'm trying to utilize local models a lot more often. And I don't know how many of you have tried this, but there are a lot of very good open source smaller models that you can try and do proper productive work with them. Last time I tried this with LM Studio. I was on a plane. I'm also sharing the code for here, so if you want to, you can scan this. It's a GitHub gist, so you can save this. And this one is going to launch a Cloud Code session inside your terminal, which uses Gemma 4 26 billion model. What's interesting about this is that Cloud Code makes it possible to, or any other open code, any other tool, makes it possible for you to connect to any Anthropic compatible API, whether it runs on your computer or on someone else. And with this one, I was able to actually write code on a plane. I was vibe coding on a plane instead of just like sitting there and listening to music. So that was a fun experience. Another thing that you can also try, and I would also recommend you to try, is local models on your phone. So there is this little application, Pocket Pal, if you've heard about it. And this one can run local models on your phone. There are very small ones, so it's like 600 million parameters or 2 billion parameters. but still they're useful enough for like basic conversations and basic information gathering. I think that's what I wanted to share today, mostly. What I would like you to take home with this probably is organizing all your workflows into these sort of skills or agentic workflows. I think this is what's going to make the difference in AI usage at the end of the day, whether you can use it productively or just chatting with it.